Hi, good afternoon to all of you who are joining us from India and the region, and a very good morning to those of you who are joining us from Europe. My name is Samrat Kumar. I'm the country coordinator for EURAXESS India, and I'm very happy and proud to bring to you this very interesting webinar on publishing in academic journals. This webinar is organized in partnership with Taylor and Francis. Publishing is an integral part of a researcher's career, and with most researchers having to publish at least once in their career. And they must but also navigate through a publishing landscape which is getting more and more complex. It's getting more and more online. It's also about open science. So this is very relevant to you, researchers and students who are interested in an international career. And I'm therefore very, very happy to invite and welcome our expert speaker, Ms. Erato Basea. She's the portfolio manager at Routledge, Taylor and Francis. A warm welcome to you, Erato.
Thank you so much. I'm really pleased and excited to be here.
That's right. I'm happy to hear that. Just let me share with all of you a bit about Erato's background. As I said, she's working for Taylor and Francis, and she has worked on Routledge's art and design journals since 2017 and on sociology journals since 2018. Erato comes to this role with years of experience in academic publishing, having been an author of academic work, peer reviewer, teaching fellow, and postdoctoral researcher at Columbia University. She holds a master's in modern languages and a doctoral in film cultural studies from the University of Oxford. So she's not only on the publisher side, she has also been a researcher herself. So she very well understands the dynamics between the publisher and the academic. And of course, to remind you, this webinar is specifically giving a focus on humanities and social sciences, which I think is great because it's often a bit, it's also it's put in the focus in many events, but in the past, in our webinars, we have focused a lot on the natural sciences. So I'm very happy that we have Erato today with us, who will share with us a better insight on publishing in social sciences, humanities journals. Before I hand over the floor to her, I just wanted to give you just a reminder about EURAXESS. I think many of you are already subscribed to our EURAXESS mailing list, but for those who are new, let me just welcome you and kindly invite you to visit our EURAXESS India website, where you find information on jobs and funding opportunities in Europe, partnering with European partners, information assistance if you're planning to move to Europe as a researcher. We have over 600 EURAXESS service centers across 41 countries in Europe who give personalized assistance to researchers from around the world. And EURAXESS Worldwide is a conglomerate of different hubs across the globe. We have offices in China, in Japan, in Korea, just to mention the ones which are in Asia, and of course the one in India, where I and my colleague are working. Yeah, if you are interested to know more about our events, about our services, I kindly invite you to sign up and become a member. The membership is free. Also wanted to invite you for our upcoming event this week already, August 5th, specifically inviting European postdoc researchers who are interested to apply for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Postdoctoral Global Fellowship and conduct parts of their research in a country outside of Europe, like India. So we will have Indian institutions, top institutions, who will present their hosting offers for European students, researchers who would like to come under the MSCA program to India. So please, for those who are joining us from Europe or who have been long-term living or studying in Europe, if you are interested in this fellowship, please join us on this Thursday. Yeah, we also, of course, invite you to stay in touch through sending us an email if you have any inquiries about funding opportunities for fellowships in Europe. Of course, please follow and like us on social media. You can also find us on LinkedIn. yeah, there's a few just information regarding the webinar. We will also put it in the chat box for you. So we will have a dedicated Q&A box where you can put your questions. Please write them there, and we will answer the questions at the end of the session. However, due to time constraints, we might not be able to answer all questions, but no worries, you can send the questions to us, and we will also forward them to our speaker. If you face any technical issues, the best thing is just to try to log out and log in. That's possible multiple times. And we will also send you a follow-up email with the presentation and the link of the recording. And you will also receive your attendance certificate in that email. Lastly, we ask you for a kind feedback about this webinar at the end of the session, which will only take 2 minutes. So please help us in how to improve our webinars by giving your precious feedback to us. Okay, so that's from my side, and let me just stop my sharing and make Erato the presenter. Sorry, 1 second. This is happening. Attendees here. Yeah, here you are. Okay, now I'll make you the presenter, Erato.
Excellent. So thank you. Thank you so much, Zamrat. So yes, thank you so much, and thank you so much also for the introduction. I would like to say that I'm really excited to be here. This year and last year have been 2 years like no other. So I appreciate, and in fact, I am moved to be here with you in the middle of a pandemic, unfortunately. And just want to say that I hope that you are everyone is okay, and your family and friends are okay. And I'm really moved because we are all here. We are more than I think 300 attendees here, and we gathered together to talk about something which is really close to my heart, and I'm so pleased to see that it's close to your heart as well, publishing in Humanities and Social Sciences journals. So Zamrat introduced me, but allow me to ask you to introduce yourselves. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to ask you to go to www.menti.com and use the following code 11608149. And there you can find a number of questions which will help us all get to know each other, if you like. So go to www.menti.com, use the code 11608149, and you can go to the site either in a new window or on another device. And I would like to ask you to type first your field of study. It can be, for example, history or law or literature. Okay, I can see some words popping up. Medical anthropology, sociology, I see, which is the field of study I support at Routledge, economics, education, psychology, political science. This is fantastic. English literature is at the center of the word cloud. Human development, urban studies, I can see. English linguistics, fashion even, which is actually, again, journals that I looked after in the past, fashion studies journals. Cultural studies, my field of study. It's really, really impressive. I will give folks a couple of minutes to type their answer. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm pleased actually to say that my presentation hopefully will be relevant to all of you, really. Journalism, tourism, I can see here. So thank you so much. Okay, so shall we move on to the next question then? And hopefully you can see it. Okay, so the next question is a question whose answer I was hoping to know before joining Taylor and Francis. And the question is as follows. How do you think the majority of readers discover articles in scholarly journals today? The key to the question is the majority, right? We're looking for an answer around how most people, most readers find articles today. Visit to a library, search engines, I think is the most popular answer so far, together with Google Scholar. Reference list comes third. Social media is one of the answers. Word of mouth as well. So, for example, from your peers, your colleagues, your supervisor. But it's fair to say that the most popular answers are search engines and Google Scholar. I will come back to this answer, and in fact, I'm gonna share the slides with you afterwards, because I have the answer for you, but I will keep it for now. Okay, so the next question is as follows: do you need permission to reproduce quotations from other sources in your article? Yes, no, it depends on the source, or I don't know, I'm not sure. Okay, I think yes. Yes is the most popular answer so far. With some people who do not know and they reply no, or it depends on the source. So it can be, for example, lyrics or images, or film stills if you write about film, like as I did in my research. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Do you need to notify and obtain permission from anyone named within the acknowledgement section of your article? And the acknowledgement sections is, of course, when we is a short paragraph or a few lines where we say, thank you to my supervisor, or thank you to, my scholars, other scholars or peers who have helped with, to polish or revise my article and so on. I will also take a note of your answers, because I will come back to these later. Okay, I think it's fair to say that yes is the most popular answer, with a few folks who have replied no, or I don't know. Okay, next question. Just for me to understand whether you know what peer review is. Okay. Okay, most of you know what peer review is, but there are a couple of you where they're not very, familiar, or they're not very sure about what this is. Okay, stay tuned because I have included some slides for us to show you what this is, an important part of the publishing process, and help you demystify it a bit. And finally, whether you know what open access is. Yes, no, or maybe. Okay. So again, yes is the most popular answer. I have included in my presentation some slides on open access, again, to show you the different kinds of open access and different journals where you can publish open access and how you can do that. And if I'm not mistaken, I have one final question. Is it okay or not okay to submit to more than one journal at the same time? Yes? No? Or I'm not sure again. Okay, so the majority of you wouldn't submit to more than one journal at the same time, but some of you you would consider doing it, and others you would do it because you think that it is okay. Okay, that's great. I think that was the last. Indeed, of the last slide of my Mentimeter presentation. Thank you so much. So now I'm gonna introduce you to my slide deck. I hope you can see it. I'm not sure if I can see your comments, but if you can indicate in your chat box, if you can see it, and Zamrat, if you can confirm
Yes.
that, it would be great. Okay,
Yes,
excellent.
we can
Thank you
see.
so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will skip the first slide. Poll time, we did that. And first, I'm going to talk about, just the agenda for today. And my goal is to talk to you through the things to consider in, all these three stages in the publication process. First, things to consider and tips for success when you write an article before submitting it to a journal. Then we will talk about what happens after you have submitted to a journal, and then, as I said, demystify what peer review is and how you can engage with the process. And finally, we will share some tips around the promotion of your work, because I think this is an equally important aspect of the whole process, right? Because you write work, you conduct research, and you write research because you want to share it with others and contribute to a dialogue, right? Okay, without further ado then, let's move on to pre-submission, right? Things to consider before submitting to a journal. And here I have included the journey we all embark on when writing our ideas. In a thesis, or more specifically for the purposes of this presentation, to an article. First, we start from the idea, right? Which is, to me at least, the most exciting part, which I always compare to an explosion of colors, right? So something happens in our brain, something happens in our mind, and we find a problem and we want to solve it, or we have a hypothesis and we want to develop it. Or we have an idea and we want to find an argument which we would like to prove in an article, right? I don't know about you, but usually, initially, at least in the cases of the first article I have written and submitted to a journal, and so published in a journal, my ideas were all over the place, at least in the first draft. But then I started, writing more drafts, and I think, in the case of my first article, I might have had more than 10 or 15 drafts before I submitted the final one to a journal of my choice. Personally, my advice to you, at least what I do, I always invite a critical friend, or in some cases, friends even, to read my work and give me some honest feedback. which I take into account. And this is really important that here we invite friends whom we trust, right? And we're not afraid to show drafts to them. Then these can lead us to further refinement of further drafts before we have a final draft, which we are confident that it's the final one, and it is the one we would like to submit to a journal. At the bottom of the slide, I have included an alternative of this journey, of this itinerary. And here I have included, as you can see, 2 extra steps you might wish to consider before, again, submitting or writing your article. You might wish to choose a journal straight away from early on in the process, and you might wish to read back issues of that journal just to familiarize yourself with the kind of scholarship the journal publishes, the kind of structure previously published articles follow, just to get a sense around whether your article, this journal, might be a great home for your research. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we write because we have ideas, but because we would like to share it with others. So we are joining a conversation. So it's important to start writing while thinking about our project, our work, our research, but also our intended audience, because there are, thousands of academic journals out there. So it's important to submit our work to a journal that is the best home for our research. So you might ask me, well, okay, how am I going to find that out? I think a good starting point would be a journal's aims and scope. And I have included here at the center of the slide a screenshot of what aims and scope actually look like. You can find this statement on a journal's webpage. And normally it is a text in 1 or 2 or even more paragraphs that explains what this journal is about, the kind of scholarship it publishes, and the kind of audience it aspires to attract. So if I remember correctly, one of you said that you work on journalism, and journalism is your field of study. So you might wish to submit to a journal that aspires to attract not just academics who perhaps are affiliated with media studies institutions, but you might wish to attract also journalists themselves, practitioners, people who work on the ground. And not all journals do that. And also journals differ by the content they publish. Some are generalist journals that publish all sorts of articles that cover all sorts of aspects in journalism or in fashion studies. Some of you said that you work on fashion and design. But other journals might publish just, niche, very, very specific aspects. So, for example, talking about fashion, we have a journal, Fashion Studies, that publishes, articles on fashion studies more broadly. But equally, there are fashion journals that publish articles that approach fashion from a cultural studies perspective. So again, more specific work. You might also wish to consider the history of a journal. You might wish to submit to a reputable journal. You might wish to consider also the names of the people who are on the editorial board of the journal. And again, I have included here some questions for you to consider again. Which of these journals I consult most often during my research? Where the people I read publish? I would also talk to people who have previously published in a journal, what's their experience what's their experience been. And also, yes, I would also look at the scholars on the journal's editorial board, whether, for example, to understand whether I know these scholars, whether I have consulted their work in my article. This might be an indication that this journal is a good fit for your research. But as I say, there are thousands and thousands of journals out there. So what we have done, my esteemed colleagues at Taylor and Francis, they have built this tool for you. It's called Journal Suggester. And it uses artificial intelligence, yes, indeed, artificial intelligence, to show you whether your article whether your article might be suitable for one of the journals we publish. So all what you have to do is to just visit these websites, the link you can find on this slide. You can paste in full the abstract of your article and click Reveal Suggested Journals. And then this tool matches the subjects covered in your article to related content across the corpus of over 4 million articles on our website. But mind you, it's still in beta mode, so we are still in the process of improving it and developing it. So on the site, you can also find some tips to consider when, in order to carefully assess the replies, the answer you will get from Journal Suggester. Okay, now, so you will ask me, okay, yes, we talked about what my research is, what my intended audience, we talked about a journal's aims and scope, the editorial board. Is this enough? Well, probably yes, probably not. Now, having published, a couple of articles already, I would say to you that also turnaround times is equally important because you want to make sure that your work will go through peer review and will be published with no delays. And ideally, you would want to submit to a journal that has a quick turnaround times. And what we did at Taylor and Francis last year was to add to have this information on turnaround times and make it publicly available on all of our journals, or rather most of our journals' websites. And here I have included a screenshot of a Journal of Ethnic and Migration Studies, a flagship title in the field we publish, and I'm privileged to look after. And I have included here a screenshot of the journal's website and where you can find information on speed and acceptance. This means that articles from submission to first decision need an average of 23 days to go to this stage. So this means that the editor-in-chief informs all authors about whether their article has been rejected straight away or whether it has gone through to peer review in, well, around 3 weeks, which is a really quick time and really impressive. And we hope all of our journals meet this target there. Other things to consider is the publishing model, and we'll talk about that later. Some journals publish only open access content. Other journals publish open access and subscription content. It might be the peer review you would like your article to go through. Again, we'll talk about that later. Acceptance rate. I think also this is a consideration or key consideration, if you like, because some journals have a really low acceptance rate. It means that, for example, GEMS, this journal, out of let's say many articles submitted, it accepts only 14% of the total of submissions in a year, and this is a low acceptance rate because the journal aims to publish really high quality research. So again, if you're under pressure to submit your work in a journal very, very quickly, you might wish to consider to submit it to a journal that has a different acceptance rate. And also articles types, because not all journals publish the same type of article. What do I mean by that? So some journals publish research articles or journal articles, and you can see a screenshot of this article on your left-hand side. But they can also publish reviews, literature reviews, for example, or book reviews, or responses, or surveys, or other types of articles. But I think, especially for humanities and social science research, we found out that other types of content are equally popular amongst HSS scholars. It can be, for example, articles that are published alongside videos. And here I have included an example of an article we have published recently, again in the Journal of Ethnic and Migration Studies. Our music portfolio publishes articles with music videos or with music videos only, and other journal articles have abstracts in the form of a video. And here you can see a video abstract Professor Andreas Bieler has published. Instead of writing an abstract in a paragraph, he decided to record himself talking about the novelty of his research in this form. Okay, so we talked about article types. So what comes next? Some basic tips for you, and here I have included actually a picture of how I personally feel when I try to put all of my ideas which are scattered all over the place in the structured form of an article. First, write first and edit later. Then keep it simple and express your complicated ideas plainly. And I think this represents me, I think. And I think above all, what are we? I think we are, fascinating storytellers, right? We are telling a story. So we want to make sure that we tell the story in a consistent way and in a way that is easy to follow, because we need to have in our minds the, our audience, the other readers. So then the paper structure, which can be the introduction first, where we outline a question, we pose a question, or we outline a problem, a hypothesis, or we describe our argument, and the roadmap of what the reader will find in the main part of our work. Then methods, theory, depending on our research and the topic we work on, the results, the discussion, and the conclusion. And I don't know about you, but personally, I find the conclusion very difficult because you have come to the end of your article, you have spent so much time, and then you are left with this section, which is the last bit. And it's really, really important actually to write a conclusion that is catchy, consistent, easy to follow, and summarizes the results of your work in the best way. So here I have included the words of the former editor of one of the journals we published, because I think it's also important to think of the editor-in-chief of the journal. And the editor-in-chief is, of course, the scholar who leads the journal, who is responsible for deciding which articles go to the next stage to peer review and which ones are rejected. So let's see what Monica Taylor says. I think authors need to think, what is it like to be an editor of a journal? How many papers is the editor receiving per day, per week? And here I should say that some of my editors receive at least 30, in some cases, or 40 articles per week. So Monica goes on to ask, what is it going to actually make the journal pay attention to your paper? So it's, as I say, it's always the thing, this thing that will make your paper stand out from the crowd. Okay, so yeah, one of the questions I asked you earlier in the presentation was, how do you think the majority of readers find journal content, journal articles today? And here, folks, if only I knew this answer before joining Taylor and Francis, if only I knew this answer when I was, writing my first articles. And actually, it's impressive because some of you know this, you know the answer. It's fair to say that at least 50% of all visits to our website, Taylor and Francis Online, come actually from search engines. Isn't it fascinating? So imagine, right now we are here talking about how to publish in HSS journals, and out there most of scholars, all they do is that they Google keywords relevant to their research in order to find out relevant articles on other websites. They, some of them use social media, but not the majority, as you can see here. Some of these readers visit publishers' websites, including our website, but not everyone. The majority just Googles keywords. And now you will ask me, well, okay, why are you saying this, Erato, to us? Why should we care? Well, here's why. Discoverability is the answer. Because if you want to be very strategic and clever right here, you want to get your article higher up and more visible on search engine results pages. And of course, one of the things you want to make sure is that you publish key, groundbreaking, innovative research, good quality research. But you might also wish to consider three things. And if only I knew that when I started writing journal articles. Here are the three things: the title of your article, your abstract, and the keywords. Right? Title, abstract, and keywords. So why I'm saying this? First, the title. My advice to you would be to make sure it stands out creatively or in terms of clarity. I would keep it short and to the point, and I would avoid using study of blah blah blah, or this is an investigation of this topic in fashion, or this topic in human geography. I would make it catchy. I would make sure, and this is, I think, important, to include specific words that capture the subject of your article and attract the audience you would like to attract. And I would highlight your findings and note your process. So here again, I have included an example of what I personally think as a good, impactful article title. Ferguson and the death of Michael Brown on Twitter, Black Lives Matter, TCOT, and the evolution of collective identities. is an article published in Ethnic and Racial Studies a few years ago, while Black Lives Matter, the political and social movement, was really in progress. It was a time when everyone was talking about it, everyone was demonstrating, everyone was using the hashtag on Twitter to contribute to the discussion and highlight these important topics. So these authors here, look at what they did. They included all the topics everyone was talking about back then: Ferguson, Michael Brown, even Twitter. And they also used the hashtags that were trending back then on Twitter. The result be that when we, the publisher or the journal office, or even the authors themselves started promoting this article on Twitter, it was picked up by readers or social movement activists, or even the general public who wanted to follow the discussion and read more about it. Needless to say that thus far this article has more than 8,000 views recorded on our website. Then the keywords in your article. And the question for you is to ask yourself, would potential readers use the keywords in my article as search terms? And if you are not sure, you can, just look at articles already out there, or you can use Google Trends. And this is actually a tool provided by Google, which allows you to compare keywords. And here I have included a screenshot of what I did yesterday, just for the purposes of this presentation. I wanted to compare two terms: the full term European crisis, European financial crisis, of course, and Euro crisis. With red, the red line indicates the number of users who searched on Google using the term European crisis. You can see nearly no one has used the term Euro crisis, which is of course an abbreviation, so not a big surprise here. But again, you might not be sure whether one keyword is more popular than others. This is a tool you could use to learn more about it. And with keywords, we also mean the words that we add to section headings, as this section will also benefit from using the right keywords. And last, but by no means least, we have the abstract, which I have to admit is not my personally favorite part as an author, because you have written the article and you have produced various drafts. Possibly your argument might have changed to a certain extent, as you had one draft after the other, and then you have the abstract, which is just the last bit you have to do before writing an article. So then my advice to you here would be write the paper first and then write the abstract. And I would also check the instructions for authors for the journal you are submitting to. And this is actually a list of instructions each journal gives to authors. It might be around, for example, word counts of your article, or word counts for the abstract. Again, use the right keywords, focus on the essential information, revise every time you revise your paper, because as I say, your argument or your hypothesis even might change accordingly. And again, think about your audience, because if you would like to attract a broader audience, you understand that this broader audience might not be familiar with jargon, with some terms, so you want to use language which is accessible to everyone. Okay then, now let's move on to third-party material here. And one of the questions I asked you was whether you need permission to include short extracts of text or quotations in your work. And the right answer here, this depends on the source. What do I mean by that? We are, of course, researchers, and sometimes we can say in our article, according to Erato Basea, for example, this film represents blah, blah, blah. And it's important when we would like to reproduce short extracts of text. We can do that on a limited basis for the purposes of criticism and review without securing formal permission, on the basis that the purpose of the quotation or use is objective and evidenced scholarly criticism or review, and not merely for illustration purposes. A quotation is reproduced accurately, either within quotation marks or as displayed text, and full attribution is given. And what do I mean by that is when we add the surname of the scholar or scholars whom we cite in the text within parentheses. So you must obtain, however, written permission to reproduce any content owned and held in copyright by a third party in your article, and you should also acknowledge and attribute the third party. So, for example, a case I had recently was when an author wanted to cite some lines from the work of Beckett. And of course, he hadn't secured permission to do that. And obviously, he had to go to the Beckett estate and get permission for that. So it's really important to check that before submitting your work to a journal, because from experience, these can lead to delays further down the process. And for lyrics, as I say, and for poems, it's really, really important that you secure permission from the third party who owns the copyright for this work. So it always depends on the source. And if you're not sure, I have included here a link to our website when we detail the sources and things to consider depending on the source. Okay. So a few words about open access. Most of you are familiar with open access, but for the benefit of everyone, I will remind everyone that open access is a business model according to which articles are published in a way that is freely available online to read forever. It means that your work can be read by anyone, anywhere, forever. It won't be behind paywall, so to speak. And in addition to that, other parties, other readers can reuse your work with little or no restrictions, depending on the Creative Commons license under which your work will be published. This model of publishing, however, means that there are costs involved. And you will ask me, well, who will pay for these costs? Usually the costs are paid by a sponsorship you might have, or a funder that funds you, and this funder might mandate that you publish your work on an open access basis. Or it might well be the fact that you are based in an institution with which we have an institutional agreement. And if your work, if your article meets all the eligibility criteria, it will be published on an open access basis in our journals. And here I have included the two broader categories of our journals. Some publish only open access content, like, for example, Cogent Social Sciences, and these are called full open access journals. But others publish both open access and subscription content, which means that they give the author the option to choose how they would like to publish their work. Like, for example, the Journal of Gender Studies, again, another journal I look after. However, we said that this involves money usually paid by a funder, but not all publishers out there are trusted, and I have no words to highlight this point. There are journals that are bad journals, predatory journals, as we say, and according to this statement, they pose a serious threat both to researchers publishing the results of their work and to the peer-reviewed literature itself. The statement says medical here, but this can apply to all types of scholarship. These publications differ from legitimate open access journals in that predatory journals subvert the peer review publication system for the sole purpose of financial gain with little evident concern for ethical behavior. So what this really means, basically, these journals do not provide the quality assurance and services that would be delivered by a reputable journal. Many of these journals do not ensure there is a thorough peer review or editor feedback. It means that if you submit to one of these journals, your research article won't receive the benefit of helpful feedback from your peers. And essentially what these journals try to do is to just take money out of you and promise you that they will publish your work. However, once your work is published in these journals, you might be in a very difficult position, because you can go to your peers and say, oh, I have published in journal X, and then your peers will say, oh, this is really weird, this journal isn't good, how come you did that? And you will lose credibility. So what to do then? You want to make sure that you make informed choices. And here I have included links to three sites, to three organizations, which are cross-industry organizations. They have members of publishers and service providers in publishing, and they help you make sure that the journal you have in mind is a trusted, ethical journal. Think, Check, and Submit is one site. Directory of Open Access Journals is again a site that provides a list of trustworthy open access publishers and journals. And also OASPA, there you can find their member list, which comprises of bigger publishers and medium or smaller publishers. Okay, so you've made informed choices then. You will ask me anything else to consider? I'm almost there. I really want to submit my work. Am I ready to do that? Yes, the answer is there are some ethical considerations, and I have to say that this area of ethics around authorship and issues around citing the work of others and text recycling is really fascinating. It can be really time consuming when, for example, I have to work around issues of ethics. So make sure that you have understood this aspect of ethics when writing your work, and do ask me questions afterwards if you're not sure about anything. First, who qualifies to be an author is mainly the person or persons who have made a significant contribution to the work reported, whether that's in the conception or study design or execution or analysis and interpretation, or all of these areas. An author is the one who has drafted or written or substantially revised or critically reviewed the article. Someone who has agreed actually to be named as author, and who has agreed on the journal to which the article will be submitted, and someone who has reviewed and agreed on all version of the article before submission. This is really important, and it's really important that you have you agree on who is the author of your work, and in fact who is the first author or second author, and so on, and also who will be your corresponding author, the one who will be making proofs, edits to the proofs if your article is in the production process. Apart from authorship, we have the issue of originality, and this is really a really interesting area. In my work, nearly day to day, I have to work on cases around text recycling or articles that perhaps lack originality and so on. So you need to make sure that when you appropriate another person's or group's ideas or processes, you give them appropriate credit in your work. And this includes also content that you have found on websites, such as blogs. And sometimes, especially if you are early on in your career and probably you have written your thesis and you want to base articles on your thesis, and you might not have had the opportunity to work on various projects. Perhaps for those of us, we tend to repeat perhaps the hypothesis or the argument in various articles we are submitting to journals. So make sure that you do not, use your own work repeatedly in an excessive way. So, for example, I have seen articles which have included which perhaps nearly 3/4, right? More than half of the article was content already published in a different article already in a different journal. And obviously this distorts the scientific record and leads to redundant publication. Finally, duplicate submission. Some of you, to my question around whether it is okay to submit to more than one journal at the same time, responded yes or maybe. The right answer is no. You cannot submit to one journal at the same time. And by that, I mean you cannot submit the same article to one journal at the same time. And why is that? Because all journals publish original content. Prior to publication, authors sign a legally binding publishing agreement when they have to sign to state that the work is original. And it's not okay to submit the same article to many journals, because by doing that, you have to be mindful of the time the editors in chief and peer reviewers dedicate to your work, and you don't want basically to they're busy scholars, editors, and peer reviewers, and you don't want to exploit that, really. Duplicate submission or publication, it is okay under certain circumstances, when your article was published in another language, whether there is guidelines where all journals and editors and publishers have agreed. And if you have published your work in a repository or a preprint server, it's fine if you take this article and you submit it to a journal. Works in preprint servers are not considered previously published articles. And if you are not sure, ask the editor-in-chief of the journal you would like to submit to. Acknowledgements. Yes, the most actually popular answer to my question whether you need to obtain permission from anyone named within the acknowledgement section was yes. So most of you know the right answer here. If only I knew that when I wrote my first article. And why it's important to obtain permission from these folks, because it gives them the option not to be named. And there have been some cases of scholars who wanted actually to be listed as authors. And yeah, there are some ethical cases my colleagues have worked on around acknowledgements here. So I thought that I better highlight this to you. Finally, before you submit, follow the instructions for authors. We have listed on the website of every single journal. Consider English polishing. Make sure that all manuscript files, figures, tables are there for your submission. Make sure that you have received permission to use images and copyright material. You have all email addresses for all of your co-authors, and you have an agreement with your co-authors on publishing choices and responsibilities. And yeah, I have actually added that here because yes, indeed, in the past I once sent the incorrect version of my paper to a journal, and I had to email the editor saying, oh well, actually you cannot believe it, I'm so sorry, I apologize, here is the correct version. This can happen, especially if you work on many drafts. Okay, so post-submission, some words then here on peer review. So again, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar, peer review is the independent assessment of your research paper by experts in your field. Every journal depends on the hard work of other scholars who act as reviewers on the journal and who test and refine each article before publication. Even for a very specialist journals, the editor-in-chief can't be an expert in the topic of every article submitted. So, for example, an editor-in-chief of a journal of, let's say, architecture can only be a specialist in only some types of architecture, and your work might cover a different aspect or a different topic, let's say. So the comments of carefully selected reviewers are an essential guide to inform the editor's decision on a manuscript. So the purpose of peer review is to evaluate the manuscript's quality and suitability for publication. It supports you, researchers, to improve your article. It alerts you to any errors in your work or to any gaps in the literature you may have overlooked. So who is involved? The editor-in-chief of a journal who assesses the article and usually is the one who selects suitable reviewers and makes a decision on publication. The reviewers themselves who assess the detail of your work and give advice and expertise to the editor, and journal staff at Taylor and Francis who might manage communications and might help you if you struggle with the online system the majority of our journals now use to process peer review. The peer review process looks something like that. So once you submit your article to a journal, it goes to the editor-in-chief who will check your article whether your work fits the aims and scope of a journal or passes the bar of quality. If it doesn't, then the editor will desk reject it. And some editors actually go above and beyond, and they will recommend to you to make some edits to your work or to submit it to a different, more appropriate journal. So if your work passes this stage, then the editor-in-chief will invite reviewers. Normally it's 2 reviewers, but some journals invite 3 reviewers. They will read your work within a certain period of time, and they will suggest a decision to the editor-in-chief. This decision might be either revise and resubmit, and they will ask you to do major or minor revisions. They can actually accept it straight away, which is fantastic, or they will recommend that they reject the article for publication, and they will give a reason to do so. The editor-in-chief will decide and will share the comments of the reviewers to you, the author, and in case of revise and resubmit, they will work with you to improve your article accordingly. So there are different types of peer review. Single blind, which means that you don't know who the reviewers are and the reviewers don't know who you are. Double blind, this is. Single blind means that the reviewers know the identity of authors and you do not know the identity of reviewers. And then there is open peer review where everyone knows who the other person is. So responding to reviewer comments, this is actually a question I should have added to mentee poll. Let's say your article has gone through peer review, 2 peer reviewers came back and they gave comments to you, the author, according to which they ask you to improve or revise or edit your work accordingly. I have to say that some of these views can be strong, so I wouldn't become disheartened. I would carefully read their comments. I will talk to my co-authors if I have to say, well, okay, do we agree or do we disagree, or how do we respond? I would break down the comments by category and create a list. And I would make all the suggested amendments if appropriate. So what do I mean if appropriate? Because I think it's a matter of experience here. And I think the more articles you submit and the more you go through this process of peer review, you will understand that here you are not asked to make every single edit the peer reviewers ask you to do. And this is because the reviewers are scholars. Yes, they are experts, but it might well be the case that they have misunderstood something. So I think it's really important that you consider it as part of a dialogue, a conversation. And if you disagree, and if you have data to back up your argument, then don't be afraid to go back to them and say, well, actually, regarding your point and your question, when you ask me to do this change, I disagree with it because of X, Z reasons, and explain why. So I wouldn't be afraid to have I wouldn't say an argument, but join this conversation. Finally, I would address every comment, where you amended and why you didn't amend the comments in a respectful way, of course, no doubt about that. I would review the response twice to make sure it is clear. And then I think it's important to understand that, yeah, everyone wants to help you. And this is a conversation, and yeah, I would encourage you to engage with the conversation. And here I have included the top 10 reasons for rejection. Yes, and yeah, I have seen articles that are too long or too short. So again, this is point 3 in the list. So yeah, make sure that you read the instructions for authors, because there you will say that you will find information saying that articles should not exceed the X thousand words, and make sure that you do not exceed that limit. Okay. And last but by no means least, let's say congratulations, you have published your work. It's exciting. Does the journey end here? Well, actually, where the journey starts, guys. And why is that? Because now it's your moment to share your work with the world more broadly. And how you can do that? Um, at Routledge, Taylor and Francis, we will give you 50 free e-prints, which is a link you can share with up to 50 peers and scholars in the field, probably with your supervisor or key scholars in your field, who can access your work for free online, and they can engage with the conversation. And here I have included a screenshot of a tweet I saw a couple of days ago by an author who shared these 50 e-prints with the world on Twitter, with her Twitter followers. And yeah, don't be afraid to use social media. And in fact, some of our journals actively promote accepted articles. And when authors submit their article, they will ask you to include tweetable abstracts. And then someone from the journal office, the editor probably, will start tweeting about it once your article is published online. And again, here you can see an example of what Social Movement Studies journal, again, a journal in my list I look after, does for its authors. And of course, the media. We have indeed some scholars who, grasp the opportunity to appear in the media and talk about their research. Here I have included a screenshot of a scholar who talked to the CNN audience. Altmetrics is an article level metrics that tracks the attention that scholarly articles receive online. And if your work is published online under metrics, the tab I have circled here, you will find information on Altmetrics. And if you click on it, you will see who engages with your work and how, whether on blogs or in Wikipedia or on Twitter, Facebook. And yeah, don't be afraid to get in touch with them and discuss your work further. And finally, do consider a press release if your research is newsworthy. And here I have included what makes content suitable for a press release. It must be timely, human interest, talk about a change in practice or a major discovery, impact, make an impact, and so on. And our marketing team will take care of that. They will review it against some criteria, but make sure you get in touch with us or with the editor-in-chief before your work is published, because once it is published, your article is not new to journalists and reporters, right? So it's important to do that before your article is published online. Okay, big breath. I think with that, we have reached the end of my presentation. More on guidance, news, and ideas for you on our author services website. And of course, we will allow time for questions and discussion. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and also follow me on Twitter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Arato. A wonderful presentation, very well structured, and you gave a clear trajectory from the process of starting to work on your manuscript to submitting it to peer review, and also a lot of very useful insight and tips for our audience. And it's quite a large audience, over 500 researchers are with us. That makes us very proud. That means social sciences, humanities is very well represented today in this webinar and in India in general. Let me congratulate you again. We got a lot of congratulations.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. This is a topic really, really close to my heart, as I say, and yeah, I can, I can go on and talk about publishing in Humanities and Social Sciences journal forever. So I hope I have, I have not exceeded my my time limit here. But yeah,
Perfect.
I'm happy to take questions and yeah, have a discussion with you.
Absolutely, it was very well in time, and we have quite a few questions, and we will see how many we can answer. Let's go straight into the Q&A, huh, Arato? So,
sure, yes.
So there often a question comes about the open access journals, which is still, I think, a relative new phenomenon here in India, and there maybe is an apprehension sometimes to publish in an open access journal. So there is a question about the credibility of publishing in open access. Like, if I put this in my CV resume, like, is that having more weight or less weight, like than publishing in a normal journal? Would you say there's a difference?
So I think this question takes us back to the distinction I made earlier about trustworthy journals and trustworthy publishers, and publishers which aren't trustworthy, which are unethical and predatory. So instead of making the distinction between open access journals and non-open access journals, I would like to highlight the distinction between publishers which are reputable, like us, which will promise to take your article through the peer review process and improve it, and publishers which won't do that. All they would try to do is to just take your money and publish your work, probably as it is, and this is not fine. This is not an ethical process. So in terms of the distinction between open access and non-open access, I think this largely depends on author needs. on what they would like to do, and of course on the financial support they have. It is true that some authors are supported by funders who mandate that the author's work should be published on an open access basis. I think um, Belinda Gates Foundation, Max Planck, they have open access mandates. So if you are affiliated with these organizations or funded by these organizations, then you need to publish on an open access basis. I think it's up to you and your funder and your institution. Certainly, open access has a number of benefits, which of course I would like to highlight as an advocate for open science myself. Your work will be read by anyone, everywhere, no matter what kind of access they have to the journals. And I think this is an important bit because not all authors have the same privilege to have the same access to journals as some countries have. For example, I am Greek, and some readers or scholars who are based in Greek institutions don't have access to all journals because of library cuts. Right. So yes, I know, for example, certain colleagues who do add to their CV that their work is published on an open access basis. And again, some assessment centers do value open access publications. I think REF, for example, in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, so don't take my word for it, but my understanding is that REF in the UK values open access and open science publications. I don't know if I have replied to your question, but if not, let me know.
Very good. No, I think you also made very clear in your presentation, the rationale behind open access journals and the quality which is there, and it's especially to look for those trustworthy journals and publishers. You also mentioned to see which are the not trustworthy, which are the so-called predatory journals, and we had here quite a few questions on, especially for early stage researchers, and maybe we all have been in the same situation. We got our PhD out, and immediately after some time we got contacted out of the blue by some publisher and congratulating us about our title and wanting to publish it, and and we get flattered in the first moment, and we think, oh, I'm already being recognized, but at some point maybe we might find out that this journal is not that doesn't have the quality or that trustworthy. So how to guard off those predatory journals, and how to assess if this is a predatory journal or not, especially for very early stage researchers. If you would have any tip. You also mentioned that already in the presentation, but if you could repeat that, please.
Yes, of course. I think with your question, you take me back to 10 years ago, probably, when I had submitted my thesis. It was awarded, and I was talking to my supervisor to start, developing my argument and some results from my thesis in the form of journal articles. And back then I was, new to publishing. I knew some journals by, obviously reading content published in journals and in books, of course, while I was working on my thesis. But come on, I was like new to scholarship. I was new to publishing, and I didn't know a lot. So I think I would first go to my supervisor first and foremost, because they are there in their position for good reason, and they are familiar not just with publishing more broadly, but with the research you work on. And I think they are the best actually to advise you, and they will be really happy to do so, because they have invested in your development, and they are really keen to continue to work with you, to make sure that you contribute to scholarship. And obviously this is important part for career development reasons as well. but the more you go to conferences, also you attend conferences and you grow your network of peers and scholars working in the field, and you develop working relationships with them, you exchange ideas. I would go to them, and I think this, it can happen naturally, as well as you
Hmm.
discuss your research, you learn from the other scholar, from your colleague, where he's thinking of publishing. Probably you haven't heard the journal, you might do some research and so on. But yeah, I think I will, of course, share the slides, and I think this actually brings me to back to the slide when I listed the organizations, which
Hmm.
actually help all authors use a checklist, a list of questions to think about and answer before submitting to a journal. For example, of course, think, check, and submitting is the first. The other two links, DOAG and OASK, are more relevant to open access and open science landscape. So these are more for authors who wish to publish in a fully open access journal.
Thank you so much. I think this is a very good tip which you gave. Speak to your peers, speak to your supervisors. If you're not sure about the journal which has approached you, or you found a journal where you're not sure if it has that quality for you to publish. Another question which I found very interesting, I think it's for many, like sometimes as author, we feel that our paper perfectly fits the aim and scope of the journal, but then the paper gets rejected, and for the reason that the topic is beyond the aim and scope or doesn't fit. So where are we going wrong in comprehending the aim and scope of the journal? Any
Um, this is
advice on
actually a
that?
very good question, and yeah, I haven't thought about it, to be honest. Personally, I would like to think that the statement of the aims and scope represents the type of research published in a journal. Um, but yeah, perhaps it might be difficult to reply to this question without knowing the specifics of the case of the aims and scope of the journal. But yeah, I have only half formed thoughts here. I might think of examples of journal editors who might wish to take the journal to a specific to give it a specific orientation.
Mm,
They might be new to the journal and they might feel that, okay, in, for example, social research methodology, we have published a lot of qualitative research, but I want to focus more on the quantitative aspect of research. So probably he might say, okay, I might wish to reject the other papers to focus on the other approach and methodology. But yeah, usually we work with our editors to make sure that the statement, the aims and scope statement, represents the kind of scholarship a journal attracts. And yeah, we always encourage them to do so.
okay, thank you for that. I know sometimes, of course, one cannot give like all the answers to the questions, but I think it was a very intriguing one, and
Mhm.
so I thought to address it to you. Another a recurring question is about recycling one's own already published article for a book. Like, is that possible? And what one has to consider if one recycles one's own already published work for a book or for other publications?
Okay, so the question is, you are an author and you have published an article and you would like to reuse your article in the book. So
Or
the
maybe
advice I give to author, no, no?
sorry, just to, yeah, and to maybe have it a little bit slightly modified, but
Okay.
that's mm,
Okay, the advice I give to authors is that it's fine. It's fine to reuse or republish a journal article in a book if the book is edited and authored by the same author, as long as they they give attribution to the original source.
mm. Okay, that's very
If the
important.
book, however, I think that there is a distinction there. If the book is edited or authored by the same author, then that's fine. If the book is edited by a guest editor, by someone else, and if the book is published by a commercial for-profit publisher, I think they are likely to be to go through the permissions process.
Okay. Another question is what if the manuscript has been rejected, is one able to submit again, or is one basically barred from the journal? Like, are there chances to resubmit?
I think if the manuscript is rejected, I would contact the editor-in-chief and I would engage in a discussion and I would ask why is my article rejected. Usually, editors would give authors feedback. And they would explain why it has been rejected. And if it has been rejected after the peer review process, the editors will give authors peer review comments. And my advice to authors here is, don't be afraid to ask the question. It might well be the case that the editor would like you to, revise or edit your work considerably. And once you have another draft, then you are more than welcome to submit it again.
That's very good. So don't be discouraged if it's not accepted
No,
the first
nothing
place.
stops us. We believe in our research, and this is why we are here, and nothing should stop us.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I have a question in relation to that. It's like once it has gone under peer review, how likely is it to get accepted?
How likely? Well, I think it depends on the peer reviewer comments. What the editor will do then is to find peer reviewers who are experts in the field, because these are the more appropriate scholars to read your research and give you insightful feedback and helpful feedback. And yeah, I think this would largely depend on their comments. There have been actually some cases of papers that have received conflicting reviews. One peer reviewer might say reject, this is not innovative, or this is the for whatever reasons, and the other peer reviewer might say yes, this is great, accept straight away. So what the editor might do in this case is to invite a third person to read and give him a helpful reply. But yeah, I think the point I would like to highlight here is this is actually the benefits of peer review. Your work will be read by experts in the field who again know better about your work, and they are the most appropriate to read it, and they will give you relevant feedback.
Thank you for that. And staying with peer review, sometimes it takes a long time for the journal to get back to one. Like what should one do if there are several months have passed and one has not received a reply from the editors? Advice on that?
Yeah, this is such a great question, and only empathy I can show here. We know that peer reviewers do that voluntarily. They also have other stuff in mind. They also work on their own work. So this occurs on a voluntary basis. And it is actually true, and I have to be really honest here with all that in this year, that obviously, as we know, with the pandemic, it is an exceptionally busy period for anyone. As some of you might know, the pandemic has disproportionately affected the lives of some of us. Some of us have childcaring responsibilities and so on. And we do aim to make sure that your work will you will get some feedback quickly, at least. The ideal time will be within 3 to 4 months This is the ideal time period, but I appreciate that this might not be possible always. So in this case, don't be afraid to contact the editor and check with them regularly. I say. And again, if you feel that, obviously the editors are busy folks as well, and if you again feel that you haven't received the response and response you are looking for, contact the publisher.
Okay, so if you really don't hear anything for a long time, as Erato said, don't be afraid, and you can contact the editors. And of course, one has to also consider the very special circumstances we all are in, and maybe delays are happening in all fields, in all work fields. I would take one more question, Erato, if you allow me.
Sure,
have
yes.
reached, we're at the end of the time we had scheduled this webinar for, but there are questions coming in also regarding copyright of images from the net, from social media handles, from YouTube. And if there, for instance, the ownership is not known, then how to approach seeking image permissions, or how to cite then if one uses images or findings from social media or YouTube.
Big breath and big sigh, because this is one of my main pain points when I was writing my work. So I feel for you. So again, it depends on the image. So for example, if you work on film, as I do, and you want to include film stills of films, which you can find either online or just screenshot a film still, that's fine, as long as you credit and you reference the film and the producer and so on appropriately in your work. For images now, again, you can find on, let's say, blogs or on Google. Again, it depends on whether it is copyrighted or not. And if it is, normally they would say it on the website who owns the copyright. And yeah, you should actually, unfortunately, seek permission. With social media, I think it's actually it depends again on whether it is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on, because they have terms and conditions, and you should actually check the terms and conditions there to find out how you can cite, and then instructions for users who want to do that.
Okay, thank you. I think this was also a very useful answer to this question, which many have these days also, because we're also taking information from social media a lot. And yes, so thank you so much, Erato, once again for joining us for this session. And it was truly wonderful. We had many questions, and I really apologize if we were not able to answer all your questions. But if you have questions, kindly send them to us. We will also forward them to Erato, and you will also receive a copy of the presentation, of her presentation, and also the link to the recording, which we will soon send to you. And you will also get your attendance certificate sent to you by us. Wishing you here in India, a good afternoon, and good lunchtime to you in Europe.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Erato, thank you so much.
Thank
again.
you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you for your attendance. Feel free to give feedback, right? And stay in touch. Follow me on Twitter.
Thank you for reminding me. As soon as I click off this webinar, you will see a window popping up with a few feedback questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely summer. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. Thank you. You too. Bye.